Good evening, everybody. Okay, so my part is done for now. I'll be handing over to the chair of the panel so that the debate can begin for Hogwarts 2023 finals. I would now invite all teams to please enter the room because the debate is about to start. Okay. Okay, sure. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the finals of Hogwarts 2023. Oh, can we please snap? Thank you. For this finals, we have some oldies and some newies, I think. Yeah, we do. Okay, cool. So we had 4 teams breaking, and after picking their positions, so for Hogwarts final, what happens is the team that breaks first gets to choose whether they want to be on the government side or the opposition side, and whether closing or opening. And for this year, we have in opening government, Horace Slughorn, which is made up of Andy and Eze. Please, energy, energy. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. In opening opposition, we have Antioch Perryville, made up of Ayafa and Elisha. Okay. So, the protagonist of Harry Potter and Hogwarts, yeah? We have Harry Potter in closing government, sorry. Please, you didn't even let me introduce them. Thank you. Does not matter, yeah? Okay, we have, once again, in closing government, Harry Potter, consisting of Dennis and Kelvin Kobana, or Opana. Energy, please. Please snap for them. Thank you, Andy. And finally, in closing opposition, we have the villain, a fellow Slytherin, Lord Voldemort. Okay, made up of Prosper Michael and Frank Bannerman. Okay. Thank you. The motion is already available to everybody, so that's good. And I'm going to hand over to the chair of the Hogwarts 2023 Finals panel, Madame Alexandra Alete. Please take over.
Hello. Please, am I audible? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hogwarts 2023. A few things to note. I would like everybody, participants and audience, to please comport ourselves. Please tone down a bit when speakers are speaking so we can clearly hear the speakers and take notes. And also participants, please mind your languages and your choice of words is very important. All right, so without wasting much time, and given the info slide, I would read a motion so we know if we are all on the same page. So the motion for the finals of Hogwarts 2023 reads that this House would abolish the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. Assuming we all have the same motion, the House will recognize the presence of the Prime Minister to start everything for us. Here, here.
Hello, guys. So, for the culture of the tournament, I'll just give a couple of shout-outs. First of all, in honor of Duvlo, who happened to organize the tournament, but who is not here in the final. Guys, I would like to appreciate all the people he ranked in his recent debate rankings in Africa, in Ghana, from number 1, number 2, maybe number 3, number 5, somewhere here, right? Number 7 is there. So, guys, congratulations. And if you didn't make the list, you know where you are. So, all right, PM speech, guys. All right, I'm going to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to prove 3 things. 1, why this abolishment maximizes the protection of the magician community. Secondly, why this maximizes the self-actualization of magicians who live within that community. And thirdly, why this creates a more advanced and happy outside world. Let's look at what this looks like. So the agreement and the restriction is already clear within the info slide, which is that there is a significant restriction on the idea that magicians could express their magic outside of the magic world. So nobody in the outside world is supposed to see that you express magic. And like Op would rightly say, it's because people in the outside world hate magicians. They have this hatred and antagonism for them, such that if they catch you expressing magic, they're likely to do very, very terrible things to you. The framing here is specifically why this is so, because magic has been hidden. The specific reason why that antagonism exists is because magic is this mysterious entity that nobody can truly understand or interrogate. And that secrecy has maximized the misinformation that surrounds magic, such that people cannot really comprehend what it looks like. And the waves of information that's dictating the notion around magic is usually conspiracy theories, which fixate on the most extreme exhibitions of magic, dark magic to be specific, which even the magic community themselves frown upon, but usually that's what ordinary people view magicians as and use it to describe them and ascribe all the negative characterizations and negative consequences of dark magic onto ordinary magicians. Secondly, what this leads to is the active persecution of people who are seen to be magicians, right? Which means that in most instances, because of this secrecy, because of this massive misinformation, that is what happens. What this means is 2 things. A, magicians live significantly less fulfilling lives because, note, they are still ordinary people in certain aspects, which means they live a significant portions of their lives as ordinary people, even though they spend certain hours of their life within the magic world. What it simply means is that they are limited significantly to the extent to which they can express that magic, even to resolve physical issues. Because sometimes you are living with family members who are not magicians, and so they need to see you using physical and practical means to resolve issues. Secondly, it means that magicians are significantly less safe because this conspiracy and this secrecy that surrounds it creates all the conspiracy theories that I spoke about. I'm going to explain specifically why abolishing this normalizes magic and why the normalization of magic is good. Before that, your POI. Yeah, because they existed in the open with all the terrible characterizations that the people were not truly informed. And note, this particular abolition is one that is controlled, which means they are, given that this is a policy motion, there are specific mechanizations as to what this abolition means and what it comes with, and the specific ways in which it manifests within the real life. Given that it is true that maybe magicians existed in the open, and that means that they were persecuted, and now they've gone into hiding, what we are saying is that now they can control their introduction into society in a way that leads to positive outcomes for them, and so we get that maximization on our side. Let's look at the specific ways in which this normalization happens. A, What it means is that, for instance, they show clearly a link between the prime minister and the person who is the most powerful entity, the minister of magic, etc. There are open discussions about these interactions, and then there's a communication of that decision to abolish, which means they equally take steps. Because note, like you say, there's a pre-existing history of magicians being beaten, being, lynched, which means this introduction or this abolishment equally takes into account a way in which it will be done to still protect the interest of magicians and make sure that they are not lynched and beaten in those instances. What this looks like is much more information, quality and true information about the true identities and the way in which magic operates. The specific lines that magicians within the magician community do not cross with their magic, and why dark magic is specifically frowned upon by the very group of people we want to introduce into society. Because note, dark magic is really the aspects of society that people view magic through. And if you're able to show clearly that the kind of people you are introducing within society do not practice this kind of magic, you are more likely to get the buy-in that you want. Secondly, this more information means that you clear a lot of the conspiracy theories and you outcrowd those conspiracy theories, because there are now authoritative people who are magicians and powerful people within the magician world populating this, not just through themselves, but equally through the active institutions of the state that they have access to, which means that they can leverage on this collaboration to actively inform people and change the perceptions that they have about magicians. Thirdly, there is now more understanding about how magicians feel, what they do, how they operate, and so people are unlikely to view them as weird people or very terrible people that they need to avoid. But finally, this means that introduction equally comes with a pre-institution of regulations as to how magic should work, which means that people right now trust magicians because they know that when they cross certain lines, states are likely to punish them, and now they have much more safety in the way in which magic would operate. What this mechanization does is to prove to you that this would come with a legitimate introduction of magic into society that creates much more safety, because note, these guys only hide magic and people mistakenly display it, which means all the negative perception and stereotypes and the negative antagonization still exist on their side anyway. We break that. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure how you change that perception anyway. The point is that, and note, if it is true that magicians existed in the open, there's a pre-understanding that they loved existing in the open. They equally want to exist within the full range of their lives. So note this. This debate cannot be that people can never understand magic. Then end the debate and award OO the win. Because that cannot be the rationale. The rationale is that there can still be a rational interrogation and an understanding, given that we understand that, okay, now even if we cannot comprehend the practical elements of it, we still have a realistic appreciation of how magic works, and we can still understand those informations in the second place. What this has is two-pronged impact. Lots of people who are in the magic world now can live their full lives and express their magic to the fullest aspects of themselves. Note, magic is a significant aspect of their identities. On these guys' side, they limit that expression of that identity, which means inherently they limit the ways in which they can live fulfilling lives insofar as it is limited in the most prominent aspects of their lives, sometimes within their family, with their friends, and the kind of interactions that they have. Secondly, just look at how this collaboration would likely help the outside world, because this would lead to much more easy solutions to very great world problems. For instance, crime, economic crisis, hunger, climate change, pandemics. And this is likely to create massive buy-in for magic, because now it solves all the great problems that humans are facing that are causing them massive amounts of pain. And so this mechanization also proves why people are likely to buy in and why magicians are going to get massive amounts of acceptance. This creates a simple thing. It is good because magicians are able to live the fullest versions of themselves. If the community is interested in the actualization of magicians, this is the best way to go, not to limit the significant and most defining aspect of their lives. Proud to propose.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for that speech. We now call on the Leader of Opposition to open up the case on the opposition bench. Hear, hear. All right, so just to confirm if you can hear the bell. If you can.
Yeah, the bell is audible.
Great.
It has to be loud. Okay, so while I'm getting started, just like to do a couple of shout outs. First off to my baby girl Denise, miss you, and then to the boys that are having their birthdays today, Umar, Alo, and Taufik. Shout out to you guys, man, amazing bros. So I'll just also like to give one last shout out to the number one speaker in Ghana, Prosper Michael Ametu. Hopefully now that I've shouted him out, he won't come and steal my extensions. But yeah. Yeah. So I'll start in 3, 2, 1. So there's a bunch of errors that come out of opening government, which means sadly, Andrews is not getting another Hogwarts trophy. First off, magic is not scary because it's unexplained. There are a bunch of things that you have around you that's unexplained. Most of you can't explain how the linen in your clothes are formed, but you're not afraid of your clothing. You wear it every day. What makes you very scared of magic is its potential, its ability to transform the way your society functions, the ability to transform everything. Because do you realize how scary it is that someone can point a wand at you, say Imperial, fuck you doggy style for 7 minutes, then give you Obliviate, and you'll have no memory, no recollection of what happened. That's a very terrifying thing. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm very scared. So, realistically, and that's just one version of it, one very small scale version of it. A large scale version of it is a combination of love potions and Imperial being able to take control of your complete government. You don't stop being afraid when you find out how these things come or how these things work. You become more scared because the things that used to form a love potion, and I know this because I read a lot of Harry Potter, aren't that scarce. I've tried it. It didn't work, but it's very, very easy to get access to. Moving on beyond that, right, is that you cannot fiat perfect acceptance in your world. It's pretty simple why you can't fiat it. Because what you can fiat is that people will actually do this, or the Ministry of Magic will do this. But if you give zero context as to how this system works, how this policy works, but just assert that all of a sudden, like there's going to have perfect acceptance of this policy, then you're making a significant bunch of logical leaps that we do not stand by. You're pure.
Simply do not respond to a framing by saying nobody responds to it, because there is not an absence of information. It's a dominance of conspiracy theory that weaponizes the darkest aspects of magic and portrays it as the mainstream magic.
Fair. But the thing is this, right? All I'm saying is simple. Is that even the truth is scary as fuck. So you're not going to stop being afraid. You're still going to remain afraid. So that's the comparative, the net zero. If you tell people more, black magic is scary, yes. Real white magic is also fucking scary. So there's no delta there. But we move on. The thing is this, right? Is that at the point in time where you cannot fiat perfect acceptance, it's safe to assume that a lot of people will be scared. It's safe to assume that a lot of people will be skeptical. That's just simply how a bunch of these policies work. So why exactly do we think that, like, even in their boss world, where they come out and have discourse, a lot of things are going to go sideways? And we're going to break this down in very simple ways. We think it's not because people are inherently bad or they are wicked. We think it's just because of very simple elements of human nature. First and foremost, like, there's still going to be segregation, right? Because you can never put a magical child in the same room as kids that don't understand magic, or have them in the same house when they are having, like, during puberty and they have wands. It's very dangerous. A wrong septum sempra could mean a dead body. So, like, it's really serious and very obvious that segregation would exist. These two parties will live in separate environments, or at least largely divided environments, and that would be a problem. But I'm going to explain why that kind of existence is going to make even more fear. Because you need to understand that populist leaders still exist. Greedy people still exist. Evil capitalists still exist. And there are going to be a lot of scared people, right? First and foremost, for populist leaders, greedy capitalists, they have power incentives to do this. So if you're a populist leader, by identifying a weak group with unrealistic amounts of power that can transform your economy and shape it to their whims, you by extension become very scared of the impact they can have in your life. What you then do is this, right? Is that every time your system fails, you can now blame it on unseen factors like you not getting along with the magician community, and then use that as a way of targeting them in a bid to win elections. So, for example, magicians should dedicate more to the status quo, dedicate more to their societies. And when they don't do that, they are wrong. At the point in time where you say that, you're literally talking about floundering labor laws, but you're making it sound like they're so powerful that why can't they just help us do a bunch of things and make us wealthier? You don't seem wrong. Most people would agree with you, especially in a society where people are poor, starving, and suffering. And at the point in time where you justify that, you're justifying exploiting labor laws. And at that point in time, you probably have pushback. And then you can weaponize those narratives and make them seem like wicked, stingy, lazy people. Evil capitalists will not like the impact on their economy because these guys already admit that they transform the way the economy works. They transform the way societies work by making significant impacts. Imagine what it means for the Sackler family if nobody needs painkillers anymore. That's billions of dollars down the drain. They are probably not going to wake up and smile with you and say, thumbs up, go Magic. They are probably going to fight back. They are probably going to encourage people to attack you. They are probably going to do that. And as I said before, afraid people. Now, finally, the original OGs of picking on witches, the religious people. We think that these people would also still attack you because you essentially claim that your God doesn't exist. You don't kneel to their God and you use supernatural things. You are possessed by demons to the best of their knowledge. They would still attack you. Damn thing. Okay, even if one of them act, you're fucked. But clarity, they will still unionize because of shared interest. Understand that Donald Trump was a populist leader. He worked well with capitalists, and he still worked with them because they had shared interest. That's the thing. As long as they have shared interest, they will work together. All those harms still exist. But moving on to what this means, right? Is that what happens at this point, right? Is that because people are now afraid, they are charged up by their leaders and told that they have to stand up for their rights and stand up for a better, greater America or greater Nigeria. What happens is that there are going to be a lot of unprecedented attacks on these segregated, easy-to-target communities. Because understand this, right, is that if you know where all the wizards live, and you probably also know how they live, right, you can probably do a bunch of really weird shit to fuck with them or fuck up their lives. Because understand that there are still weapons that can fuck with wizards. A good grenade timed at the right time will probably fuck up a wizarding community. C4 will do the same, right? But even if these things don't work, right, understand that, like, at the end of the day, the attempts of these attacks would still make these people feel very uncomfortable. Understand for clarity that there are probably also people like Grindelwald on, like, the wizarding side that are going to encourage retaliation, encourage attacks, and encourage violence to establish their own power. What that means is that this conflict is going to exist on both ways once the humans attack. Understand that the outcome of this is a full-blown conflict. Even if you claim there's no full-blown conflict, all of OG's benefits don't happen because I'm not going to help heal somebody that is attacking my community. I'm not going to hand over my magical prowess to help improve the economy of someone that is casting spells and throwing bombs at my community. What that means is that there's going to be severe human tension, human magician tension that is going to be crazy. Even if that doesn't become a war instantly, understand that just maintains for years. Because there is no reconciliation. There are very obvious divides. You are two very obvious types of human beings, and that conflict just exists. Eventually, that powder keg is going to blow. Eventually, one politician is going to take it a step too far. One religious leader is going to take it a step too far, and then you will have conflict. Understand that a powder keg is just something that is bad. The comparative in today's debate is not perfect, but in a world where both parties don't know they exist, they don't target each other, and they don't have hatred, humanity is not fucked up enough to decide that we need human or wizarding help that much. We're very proud to win this from all.
Thank you very much, Elo, for that speech. Before we invite DPM to present his cases, would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Frank Bedu. He's the SRC Tech Talk chairperson. We are very grateful to have you, sir. If you could please give us a wave, we'd be very okay. We are glad to have you, sir. Thank you. All right. I would say this again. I said it before. Because we are streaming this, let's try our possible best to mind our diction. Our language is very important because we are streaming that on an educational platform. I wouldn't want to portray ourselves as people who use certain accepted choice of words. Thank you. All right, DPM, let's have you.
So before I begin, of course, I'm also going to give shout-outs to a bunch of people. So thank you to everyone who made my stay in Ghana for the past 1 week good. I'm going to start with all my friends at UCC, from Nana to Akosua to Jacqueline to, of course, I'm sure I'm going to forget a lot of names, but yes, everybody in the UCC Debate Society. Also, big shout out to Zoe from UNAIR and Favor from KNUST, Favor Peters from KNUST. Unfortunately, I couldn't see you guys, but thank you for your virtual warm reception as well. And once more, shout out to all the younger generation speakers who, every time I have to speak, I feel like I have to impress, because now I have to inspire with those speeches, because a lot of people have to record and then keep it and talk to me about it later on. So thank you very much for your vote of confidence. Great. So after 7 minutes of Ayafa's speech, he doesn't tell you why the existing, secrecy is like makes the lives of people within the magical world any better, right? Because he ignores the bulk of analysis that come from Andrews to tell you that these individuals in themselves are living within a restricted version of their life. Think of everything Ayafa tells you as the same kind of bullshit that people told gay people before, the advent of, pride matches and being able to come out. Because essentially, this debate is about minorities choosing to either live in an echo chamber where they are only validated by their own, community, or being able to allow themselves to be integrated within the rest of the world who don't share the same characteristics. So, for instance, if Ayafa's word is true, right, a lot of, gay people in this world would have been stoned to death and all of those sort of things. We do agree that some sort of restrictions still exist, some sort of, marginalization still exists, but we think that overall, this example is obvious to all of you judges. We think that overall, we have seen that the lives of, minority individuals, like queer people, have become much more better because of the ability of them to be the ones to weaponize the rhetoric that is out there in public. So the narrative about what it means to be queer is now controlled by them. Because before the advent of coming out on pride marches, every information we had about the queer people were controlled by non-queer people. So we're able to have, conspiracy theories about how they were weirdest people and how they could strangle you and how they could, have sex with you without, your consent and all sorts of things. All of these things were lies, and that is the reason why it was scary to interact with that community. In the same vein, they say that magic is scary. We say yes, magic is only scary because the amount of information that is out there is populated by conspiracy theories that are essentially lies. And the best forms of them that are true are ones that are derived from the extreme use of dark magic. What we then say is that within the magical community in and of itself, even people within the magic community already demonize dark magic. That is why even within, the Harry Potter series, there's already restrictions that prevent individuals from being able to use dark magic. That's exactly why Lord Voldemort is the villain, right? Because we don't want him to be able, to use that extreme form of dark magic.
Pure.
It means that at the heart of it, within the magical community, what the magic community wants to achieve is to be able to use the purest versions of magic to better humanity. That's the goal of the magical community in and of itself. We then say, how are you able to achieve that goal in your world where you say that there has to be strict restrictions or dichotomies between the magic world and the Muggle world? In these instances, we say no. Then they say, segregation would always exist because the whole world is going to hate them and come together against them and all of those sort of things. I don't think that this is necessary to argue because, importantly, like we already said, when people are in charge of their rhetoric, obviously they're going to be liked. But why, more importantly, are they going to be liked? See, I don't think any of you here are scared of religion, right? Because essentially, magic is a more effective version of religion. You see miracles all the time when you tune into Alpha Hour, right? Or NSPPD in Nigeria and all of sort of things. You are okay with that. You're not scared of seeing that somebody's hand was healed and all of that. I don't think anybody will be scared if they had malaria and the magician laid hands on them and they became better. The only reason why they are scared is because the versions of the stories out there are the versions he told you that you can be used or raped without your information, that you can be stolen, that the community, that the state or government can be captured. That's the kind of information out there. But there is also very positive information out there as well that is no longer being able to be populated because of these restrictions. So what we proceed from our side is that the only kind of people that you prevent from being able to enjoy magic to the best of it are the good magicians in themselves. Why? Because people like Severus Snape, people like Lord Voldemort did not respect this law. They were still able to weaponize Muggles, hypnotize them and use them for his own personal wars in these instances. What it ultimately means is that your word does not stop harm from occurring because the harm doesn't come from good magicians. The harm comes from dark magicians, and these individuals, therefore, like Muggles, therefore, are left without any fallback plan. In our world, when you are attacked by a dark magician,
because there is no law of secrecy, you can report to the Ministry of Magic, because then you can now have probably something like an Avengers. That's what our world looks like. It looks like having an Avengers that is able to protect humanity against other forms of extraterrestrial forces. It doesn't mean that these harms are not going to exist, but it means that now we have a fallback plan against them. You have a DPM, a DLO speech. Stop shouting. Let's then advance the debate. Nextly, we think that why the interaction between the magic world and the... So we think that the interaction between the magic world and the outside world is not prohibited on their side. Because it tells you it is impossible to have a bunch of teenagers in the same room who one have magic and the other one not having magic. Guys, I think we all saw the movie, right? Simeon Grange, right? Existed in a family where her parents didn't even know that she had magic in these instances. What it meant ultimately is that you are always going to have... Because in the society that we live in, or... in the magical world, fictional world that we live in, right? We don't have a restriction that prevents magicians or magical people from falling in love and building families with Muggles. That's how come you have half-bloods. It's okay, right, for them to have this sort of relationships. If it is then okay, we then say, how are they able to live the best versions of their life if you don't allow them, to be able to express themselves? It's like living with someone in the same room and hiding your gender or hiding your skin color. That's how magic is innate to the identity of magicians in and of themselves, and we think that it's important that they're able to express themselves. Why is this more important for the Muggles in themselves? Because realize that a part of abiding to this law of secrecy is that every time somebody sees you do magic, you have to wipe their memory. Imagine what this means living with an individual, probably a Muggle, right, in your family, where every time you mistakenly use magic, probably you wake up from a bad dream or a nightmare, and you mistakenly trigger your magic, and you see that somebody was awake and noticed that, you have to wipe their memory. But because you live with them every time, what it means is that frequently you have to do this to them, significantly deprioritizing their ability to actually enjoy their own lives, because now you're messing up, their memories, because now you are distorting the kind of images that they have in their head in these instances. Finally, we think that the problem with the interconnection of societies, these both societies, lies in the exploitation of dark magic. Their world provides no protection for Muggles against dark magic. Our world is the only side that gives Muggles the ability to find protection, amidst this dark magic in itself. But guys, what this guy tells you that they have not engaged in is how the world view is going to be better off. Because, for instance, we know that magic can be used, for example, to have cured COVID-19, right? We know that magic can be used, for instance, to prevent, or to better the world against climate change and all of these sort of things. Imagine what it would look like if you had a fine fusion of science and magic. That is impossible in their world because there is this fine restriction that prevents. In our world, we allow this collaboration to exist, and we allow both the magical world and the Muggle world to exist and to advance and become more technologically advanced. We protect both human beings and evil. Evil magicians are going to exist in their world, and they don't care about this law. That's what you need to know, because they're the traitors in themselves. We're happy to win.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister, for that speech. We now call on the Deputy Leader of Opposition to enhance indicators of the opening opposition and bring the debates in the opening half to an end. Hear, hear.
Okay, so before I start, shout out. What will I talk about? Thanks to people that put Hogwarts together first. I think it's a brilliant idea. And yeah, I think it's one of KNUST's biggest gifts to the African debating space. So thank you, KNUST. Also, since everyone has been giving shout outs to number one, congratulations on being the best speaker in the country. Okay, so I'm going to start. this debate cannot just be about, oh, the policy exists, we need to scrap it out, right? The conversation has to be also about the reason why the policy exists. I think there has been some conversation about it, especially from our end, but we need to consider a couple of things. This debate equally cannot just be that magicians wanted to only protect themselves. I think that in this particular debate, we need to recognize that magicians wield a very huge amount of power. This is them self-censoring themselves and recognizing the possibility of what their power can do to the human race, and recognizing that because they have a lot of power, they have a huge responsibility to shield the average human being away from the problems that can exist when magic is revealed to be like something that exists, right? So recognize what this then means. What this then means in most instances, and I want to make this particular analogy clear. Artificial intelligence, for example, is a pill that we can swallow in our everyday world because, one, human beings put it together. It was birthed by human beings. And because human beings were the ones that put it together, we are capable of explaining how it works and how it was formed. Unlike magic. With magic, human beings themselves do not fully understand how magic works. So if you listen to what, or you've read what happens in the Harry Potter series, you recognize that even all of these people who are supposedly experts on magic were always being shocked by new things that people were doing. What this inherently means is that the narrative that they claim they are attempting to control is something that they can't really control insofar as they don't understand the full scope to how that particular narrative occurs and how that particular magic happens. What this then does is that I've already taken out the framing that they claim is so great that we haven't responded to. But the main thing and the main reason why I'm saying all of these things is because of a couple of things. Ask yourself, if people have been living for 300 years without the existence of magic, and magic is introduced tomorrow, what happens? Ayafa has already spoken to you about fear and conflict. But let's talk about the average human being and what happens to their life. What this inherently means is that you screw up the incentive structures that exist in humanity, and the reason why humanity in and of itself is thriving. So for example, because the average human being is not waiting for magic, the average human being is likely to do what? Evolve, innovate, etc. In your world where jobs like doctors are being replaced by people who are magicians who can heal, there's absolutely no reason for an individual to innovate and an individual to move further. That particular world that they create, that they claim is a utopia, is something that is inherently going to hurt human beings and the ability for the human race to survive. What is going to happen in the long run is we are going to have a world where human beings have very little impact in society, and the magicians completely take over the world and are the only ones that are important because they are the only ones that have a utility. At best, what happens in that particular world is that human beings lose their value. They have absolutely no reason to live. There's nothing to self-actualize on. Human beings are basically useless. But then the worst case scenario is the conflicts that Ayafa talks to you about, which is something that you need to remember because he spends his whole time mechanizing how these things is going to work. But I'm going to also flag another thing. Recognize that there are populist leaders in the magical world too. And I understand that some people on this panel probably haven't read the book, right? So let me explain what that means. When the thing was in something that people respected, the policy that they want to scrap was being respected. What happened was that there were several magicians that said the human world had to recognize the magic world, and the magic world should not be afraid. What they then did was they were able to create a collective group of magicians who were ready to go to war with human beings. Insofar as you believe Ayafa's analysis on fear and the possibility of that fear sparking violence, then recognize that there are also magicians on their end who are equally going to use the idea that the human beings are fighting against us, we need to fight against them too, and you're going to have a situation where the magicians are going to respond and there's going to be a full blown out war. Let me take out OG again, even though I feel like I already have, right? A couple of things before that, CG. Yeah, that's up to you to decide. Moving on. So let's discuss other things in this debate, right? So they argue that there's a conversation about the normalization of magic. Recognize that the normalization of magic in and of itself is something that makes things worse. Because recognize that Ayafa already tells you that the more people understand the full impact of magic, the more likelihood that they are going to be scared. The weirdest thing in this debate is Eze saying that it is equally like gay people. Because unless he knows something that we don't all know, gay people don't have any special powers that the average human being doesn't have. So I'm not quite sure why gay people are the people that we are talking about. The second analogy then is about religion. That is also ridiculous, because religion in and of itself is not something that is like potent. I don't know. Some people believe in it, some people don't believe in it. In the world that we are discussing, magic works. It always works. It is something that is potent, and it's something that is visible. Like, your religion could be false for all I care. The debate is not about religion. I'm coming. So once again, that particular analogy is something that you can't buy. I'm just taking it out in case anybody on the panel bought those bad analogies. What inherently happens is that when people understand magic, they get more scared. But recognize, I'm not going to agree with Andrew when he says, if we say they can't explain magic, then the debate shouldn't happen. I didn't make the motion. It's really simple. You can't explain it. Why? Because the people that claim to be experts themselves do not understand the scope of magic and are always blindsided by people like Lord Voldemort, who are able to find new innovative ways to use magic and screw up society. And that is something that is evident in these books and the stories that have been told. What then happens in their world? The fear then exists. And that is why Ayafa's case in this particular debate is extremely important. But also recognize that the reason why that particular policy was so important was because it then forced magicians to be extra careful about how they practice magic. So it wasn't just don't practice magic because we don't want people to know about magic, but don't do these things that are extreme because they are things that are likely to call out the possibility of, creates the possibility of people recognizing that magic exists. What then happens in their world? They say, oh, people should be able to get their identity fully. In a world where you are actively regulating the identity of individuals, if you say it's an identity, you don't actually allow them to express themselves. Let's use that crazy gay people analogy that they provide, right? Imagine saying gay people can exist, but they are not allowed to kiss in public like a straight person, and these same gay people are equally not allowed to get married like a straight person. Is that really allowing them to be able to express their identity? No. That particular case falls out. Moving on to the next thing that they talk about, that is going to make life better. Like, recognize that CG claims we are not going to have a complete overhaul of society. They would have to shaft their OG for that to happen. Let's deal with the part that OG says, right? What then happens in most instances is that, as I've already said, people lose the reason to live. Humanity then drowns out, and people are going to pick up arms and want to save themselves and gain purpose again. If nothing at all happens in this debate, they don't get that particular piece that they want. You can't put a magician in the same class as a child because at the end of the day, there's going to be a situation where the child is going to feel cheated and they don't feel as if they are being put on equal footing with other people. It's a good day to oppose.
Thank you very much, Diallo, for that speech. Advancing to the closing half of today's debate, would like to recognize the presence of the member of government here.
Sorry, I'm just getting my sheets together. Sure. Sorry about that. Okay, so before then, shout outs to everyone. I'd like to take this moment to appreciate my trainers, my trainees, the society that has brought me this far. And thank you all for the love and support. And to the judges, to Cap and Ocom, and to the judges especially, thank you for your feedback. It really helped us reach this far and would hope to continuously make you proud. Thank you. Okay, so let's do this. So starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel the House, as the Ministry of Magic, we believe in one thing. With great power comes great responsibility. When the very foundations for the very inception of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy are crumbling, both within our wizarding community and in the Muggle community, one, do we sit aloof and recoil to tradition, or act now and safeguard our people and Muggle kind. What does this look like? Increasing mixed blood or half-blood population within our community. The increasing interactions and curiosity to bring both worlds together, both between our wizards and Muggle kind. Next, the constant and blatant disregard of the statute by dark wizards with nefarious intentions. And finally, unlike 1689, during the Salem witch trials where we existed in isolated pockets and we were vulnerable, we are now a united, invincible community. That statute of secrecy has served this purpose. Therefore, we can't sit idly by. We need to act now. Now, one thing that you do not get, I'll engage you later. One thing that we do not get from the opening halves, primarily from our opening, is with regards to the model, primarily on how the alternative world would look like. Because one, mind you the context that this is not 1689, because this debate assumes a progression of time. What is that primarily important for our extensions? It means that society is more enlightened because we had passed the age of enlightenment. The individuals who came up with the scientific theory, the individuals who came up with scientific doctrine. That means that religious power has waned. That is against what you get from side opening opposition. Liberalism has been born and liberalism exists, and Muggle kind is more accepting of the new, and that means which was what the religious people had gate kept from them. Onto my extensions, the remaining rebuttals would be integrated. Who do we owe an obligation to? Both to our communities and to safeguard Muggle kind. That is why the secrecy exists. But in our world, what we are going to do is that we are going to permit the open interaction between both of them. But again, this cannot exist like that. Interactiveness can still exist within a sphere where we can still protect Muggle kind. So then there's this case. The Muggles don't consent to being charmed. Then you'd use forgetting spell on them. That also doesn't engage with the fact that we can spread across self-defense mechanisms to neutralize them. What is the mechanism for them? We can create charms, pockets, lockets, watch. So that means that if I cast a spell on you, it will bounce back. So that means all of them is always out in this round, basically. You don't get that from there. All their argumentation on is harmful, and etc. That means, so the first extension you get from us in terms of a mechanism is the self-defense mechanism that you get in our model that's able to neutralize any harmful effects that exist in their world. Because in the event where the dark wizard, of course, mind you, the actors within this debate, which they concede to, are willing to violate this statute, go and cause massive damage like Lord Voldemort did. But the point is that how are we going to safeguard them? Because as a Ministry of Magic, our individuals are stationed globally around the world, but cannot protect every home, every father, every mother. So that means that we can devise the mechanisms to be able to pull that off. That ability to enable them to interact and that ability to be able to create self-defense mechanisms for them neutralizes any massive harm that exists in both worlds. So what is the second extension you get from side-closing government? And that is the conversation about mixed bloods and the half-bloods. Because in the wizarding community and through the movies, you knew that Professor Dumbledore was someone who was willing to who was pro the half-bloods and the mixed blood. But it was rather individuals from the Slytherin community that believed that it should be gate-kept just for them, just for their nefarious interest. But once there's a balance between these two, and as the Ministry of Magic, we are aware of it, we are also principally obliged to also protect mixed bloods. Why? Because for the mixed bloods, there are two things with them. In status quo, they are shunned, they are discriminated. And even when they are trying to get into the schools, they are not able to grow and self-develop. Even when some of them are very, very super talented. You saw it with Harry Potter's cosmate in that regard. We believe that's important. Before I go on, yes, Prosper.
I have just one question. How does all you are saying stem from an eradication of the ICW? You need to prove the connection between those two things.
Good, because it still ties back into my analysis. Because that statute is what is encouraging the pure bloods and the Slytherin people to keep magic from everyone. Something that everyone has a principled obligation to benefit from. Primarily when let me intuition pump it. A technology that can benefit every individual and benefit us too. Primarily when we've shown how the Muggle people can't hurt us anymore. So it's rather the onus lying on us to safeguard them from any evil that is going to leak out from our community into the years. I'll give O a chance. Here's the thing: mixed bloods have a parent that is human. Why would I let my mixed blood dad go and die at the hands of some evil guy wandering around the streets? Okay, that you could have done more with that POI, honestly. So the next thing, the mixed blood people. There are two harms with this. If you watch Fantastic Beasts like Crimes of Grindelwald and the rest, there's a problem when a mixed blood represses his magical ability. He becomes an obscurix. That means he's able to burst out just there and then threaten the immediate population around. The only way you kept that in our world is being able to abolish this statute of secrecy and allow the mixed bloods to be able to feel great. What happens? Because there's a principle there, the principle of the contact theory. Because what happens is that as the interactions begin to increase, that means that polarization the mixed blood populace felt is eroded, because now there's the interaction of the non-magical people who are now entering, and they have the ability to even engage in magic in that regard. So that means that on a principle level, we are fulfilling our principle obligation to the Muggle individuals. We are fulfilling a principle obligation to protect their families, and we are also fulfilling our principle obligation to protect both worlds against the nefarious harms that exist. That is what that extension deals with. And again, on the conversation on public perception, it is only then that both worlds are able to get that demystify all the darkness and all the evil that is around. It's only us that prove that proudly closing governments.
Thank you very much, Member of Government, for that speech. Member of Opposition, you're next.
Hi, am I audible? If you were visible, you would have been here. All right, sorry. I apologize for that. All right. So, my shout-outs. All right, so my shout-outs. This is my third Hogwarts finals, by the way. And I give a shout-out to Solomon Omani Mensah, being a Potterhead. I'm doing this for you. I'm winning this for you. And then to Isaac Dria, I follow Potterhead. All right, so let's do this. Oh, you will come giving shout-outs, don't worry. All right, I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, there's a very simple case from closing opposition that wins this debate. And go back to your first year debate, necessity. Is there a necessity for us to do this in the first place? If you're able to point out to you that there's no problem that exists currently, it means there's no need for this policy to exist. That will even happen before my principle comes, which will shatter everything on the side. So first thing, the assumption that people in the wizarding world are suffering and they are limited and there's an obscurial is not true. Do you know what an obscurial is? An obscurial is someone who is kept secret, even by their own magical family, so that they can't even use their magic on their own. An obscurial is not kept in secret because there are humans out there who will see you using your magic, right? It means that most people in the wizarding world live in structural places that have been created to shield them away from the human world. What that means is that they have their own niche communities in which they are able to freely express their magic, right? How are they able to do this? They are able to create charms that are able to even hide in plain sight. So, like, for instance, in the Harry Potter world, the gateway into Diagon Alley was literally in the UK itself, right? So, for instance, in places like where they went to play the Quidditch World Cup, it was literally on a farm somewhere, and they just hid it with charm so that when human beings came close to it, they saw a rubble. What that means is that the large chunk of the wizarding world live in niche communities where they are enjoying life and they are chilling. They don't need your cars and all your technology to exist. They already have magic so they can fly on brooms, right? Whether they fly on, like, it's even faster than the planes you use. What that means is that they don't need the kind of things that you say they need for them to survive. They are not being oppressed by anybody. They chose to be there. It means there's no necessity. The second thing, why did they create the ISWC in the first place? They didn't just stand up and say, oh, let's just create a community. They were being hunted down and killed by Muggles, right? What that means is that for you to prove that would all of a sudden, like, you have to prove that all of a sudden that would, like, go away. How did these guys say to go away? Information. First response, information exists on a lot of levels. Nobody controls information in this world. Even during COVID, the government could put out information about something, and there's alternate information. And this is not even about COVID. This is something where multiple people have multiple information about, right? What that means is that you don't control the narrative. Even if you put information out there, you don't control how people handle that information. It means that the whole policy framework from OG is horrible and cannot win this debate. And that's the first thing to prove that this is not necessary. Now, my principle and why we win this debate. Panel, note this, and listen carefully. The grounds of societal structure is on the backs of equality. The moment you tell people that there is discernible fact that we are not equal, it causes an implosion. What does this mean? This means three main things. One, the social contract theory. Why is the social contract theory existent? Whenever you go to every single country and they are creating their laws, what do they say? We, as equal human beings. That's literally what every single, like, constitution says in every country, right? The reason why we said we are ceding power to a government and having an equal power within the state is because of the assumption that all of us are equal. The problem and what unravels societal structure is when there is fact that we are not equal. There are people out there whose genes are different than us. That then means that the structure upon which we have created our society then unravels. How do we mechanize this? Do you know why blacks and whites were able to come together? Because literally, blacks were treated as slaves because they were subpar human beings, right? But the reason why we are together is because there is no discernible proof that the DNA of a black man is different from the DNA of a white man. The problem, though, is that these people are very different from us by every extent. What does this mean? It means that they can no longer subscribe to the societal structure we've created because all the laws that we've created stems from the fact that we are equal, but we are not equal. It means the kind of state of nature that existed is literally what we go back to because the assumption is that we are no longer equal and there's likely going to be chaos. It means on your side, there's a principle that unravels everything that creates our society. Why is this even worse? Because things like the laws to judge people, to hold people accountable, is far more worsened on your side. Because we can't even interpret these things to a large extent. The second reason why this, I'll take you later, sit down. The second reason why that's even worse is conflict theory. Panel, the thing about conflict theory is that the ability for us to engage each other, for us to come out with a resolution that allows for us to exist, is worsened on their side because the engagement of these two factions is unequal. Simply because there's unequal power. I slap you, use a charm on me and turn me into a mouse. Like, it's ridiculous, right? What that means is that the two communities simply cannot exist, right? Because the kind of powers they have don't allow them to have conflict theory for us to have a resolution. The reason why that's important is because societal evolution is premised on conflict theory. That conflict theory cannot be equal in a world in which there's an equal power that exists between those two factions. It means that there's a certainty that no matter what you do, these two communities can never survive and they can never thrive. That means there's no reason why the ISWC should be removed.
This society is already unstable, given that dark magicians don't respect this and are instrumentalizing people and creating that conflict.
It's a lie. Pano, it's a lie. There's a reason why it's okay. I've heard your viewer, it's okay. There's a reason why in the entirety of the Harry Potter world, it's just two people you are told have gotten up to destroy everyone, Grindelwald and Lord Voldemort. That is because, like, it's very few instances. But the thing is that we can also point to people like Hitler, etc. Bad people can exist, but that doesn't mean the majority of magicians are bad people who want to kill Muggles. Do you get it? So you have a higher burden to prove that all magicians are bad people who want to kill Muggles. But the second thing is that on our side, there are literally laws that check them. Let me tell you about the ISWC. The reason why if there's an underage magician uses magic against someone, the reason why we can catch them is because of the ISWC that tracks underage sorcery. The reason why we can track people who are from Britain, who go to Germany to go and cause harm, is because of the ISWC. That's actively what allows people to be tracked, to allow them, to prevent them from causing harm in the human world. If that doesn't exist, it means you can't track any of these people anymore, right? It means then they need to prove on their side that every magician is evil and they want to kill everyone. What I've proven to you in this debate is that, number one, those two societies can never link together because of the inherent differences that exist between them. This is not about being black and being white or being gay. This is about having more power than I have, which means that we can never work together. Number two, what I've proven to you is that it's not necessary in the first place because these guys are literally enjoying their lives, right? They are not being limited. The magical world is not full of obscurials that are just floating around. It's people who are enjoying their lives. But then three, conflict theory. That's the conflict that comes out of integrating these communities only spells doom. This is the principle, right? The principle is this. Every single law, societal structure, the ability for us to have statute comes on the backs of the idea that we are equal. But in this debate, we are not equal. And that is why you can never allow for these groups to integrate. Proud to oppose.
Thank you very much, Member of Opposition, for that speech. We'll now call on the government whip to conclude the debate on the government bench. Hear, hear.
Am I audible? So I dedicate this speech to Coach Mace. Thank you for everything. And to all my friends, all my fans, I'm just here because of everybody. It's my first Hogwarts, my first final. I mean, I'm just amazing. So 3, 2, 1. I'm going to go so hard on these guys than these guys because their case doesn't make sense. Do you know why? Bannerman says the large majority of wizards are not the ones who want to harm people. They are not the one who want to harm the Muggle kind. But he analyzes conflict theory. Conflict theory means that you need to prove that there's active incentive of the large majority of wizards to hurt Muggle kind. 2, the dark fiends, the dark wizards, will hurt the Muggle kind whether this statute is existent or not. 3, the dark wizards also try to hurt wizards too. They don't just hurt Muggle kind. The difference is that they are not able to defend themselves against the dark fiends just because if you do it, you'll be prosecuted. What it means is that the debate cannot be about those who do not care about the law anyway. The debate is about those who are able to engage with the law and want to engage with humans. He says, oh, they don't have any problem. They don't care. You are literally in hiding because you were afraid. What it means is that he cannot assume comfort when the reason of hiding is away from discomfort. Prosper needs to do far better if they want to win the debate. Let's deal with Ayafa because I think they're easier to deal with, right? So they say capitalism and human labor. 2 things. 1, you can always allow people to use wizard power only in rare instances, like life and death situations anyway, because these easier ways of solving human problems are approximate to people anyway. So if you have paracetamol, you go and walk and look for a wizard just because wizards can do it. Secondly, religious people, and he says populist leaders. 1, populist leaders want a lot of people with a lot of power to be their friends. It's unclear why a populist leader won't want you to do these things things. Populist leaders have always weaponized religion as a means to control people. The reason populist leaders will buy into us more is that us, we can kill you instantly instead of saying that God will punish you. What it means specifically is that populist leaders will change focus from religion. It has happened many times, like paganism in Arabia to Islam. Populist leaders want those who have the most power. If wizards have it, wizards will be with them. They said fear because you can't explain things. Tornado, tsunami, floods, volcanoes are done by gods. They are not done by human beings, but still we are able to explain it. It's unclear how people cannot explain something just because it's not by humans. Two, a lot of man-made stuff are hard to explain. BTC, blockchain, AI. What it means specifically is that even things that humans do, humans don't understand. Three, constant exposure to ideas by science allows us to interpret it. For example, a pastor cannot explain a volcano or a flood, or simply why there is day and night, apart from saying God said there was day and God said there was night. But exposure to it by scientists allowed scientists to interrogate it and explain that there's something called the rotation of the sun around an orbit. What it means specifically is that they cannot win unless, there's no way they can win. So let's go to CG. Why do we win this debate? One, we show you that magic can mitigate magic. What it means is that, one, since they do not prove constant evil intent of these normal wizards, it means that these normal wizards don't want to do that. Two, they cannot fiat that everybody will hate the people who are wizards. Why do we have half-bloods? It's because some people fell in love with wizards. Again, people like amazing people. Why are girls after me? Because I'm amazing. What it means specifically is when people are able to see people and see that you have this skill, they would link with them anyway. Four, human beings like socialization and allyship. So that's why women will marry men who are rich, even though they don't love them. People would want to have the more powerful person on their side. What it means is that some people will marry magicians just to protect themselves from the evil ones. Why? Because even if there is this statute there, dark wizards will always want to hurt the Muggles, and the Muggles would always want good wizards to protect them. Let me take closing first.
So the idea that these guys are running away from discomfort doesn't necessarily mean that these guys are limited. That is why people can live in their niches and still be happy. Prove that they are unhappy in their own niches.
Yeah, I don't think it really makes sense, and let me show you why. Because you cannot prove that those who are persecuted, those half-bloods who are having identity crisis are happy. Two, I have my necessity sheet here. Let's go. He says, one, half-bloods who are hurt on both sides, it's not necessary to care about them. Two, wizards who cannot control themselves and harm others unintentionally because of lack of training, because the Muggles are with them and the Muggles don't want them to join the wizardry school. Three, unintentional abuse of power by young wizards who have not been able to get any training. It's really unclear why all these things are unnecessary. Four, the constant oppression of every wizard just because dark wizards are doing everything they want without anybody checking them. He needs to show why all these four things are unnecessary just because some wizards are having comfort. Five, charms fail all the time. Why? Because the wizards need to be able to practice to be able to gain a certain form of power. What it means specifically is this. At best, even if it is not for mankind, we allow the normal wizards to protect themselves from the dark wizards without any repercussions. This is beyond any benefit that comes even with human interactions, being able to fight against your own kind who wants to harm you, Elisha.
Your case is a lie. Harry Potter was able to defend himself. He did not do that breaking the laws. Secondly, be very comparative. AI and blockchain are things that human beings created. The reason why people fear volcanoes is because they can't explain it.
No, volcano is formed by lava. Didn't you go to science class? It's very important, and that's why this team is very ridiculous. Science has been able to explain a lot of things, but you fear volcano because it will kill you. If you understand volcano, it doesn't save you from it, right? What it means specifically is that our side is the only side that provides a defense mechanism. Why? One, people are always curious. Two, magic can give quicker results than religious results. Three, we say that to an extent where people want that protection from the dark fiends, we allow it to happen. Four, since they are half-blooded people, Like, it's very painful to know that you have magic. You can save this dying person you care about. Your family is in poverty. You can save them at no cost or no harm to yourself. But because of a certain idea of secrecy, you watch them and let them die. We say that people have this power, and since there is proven intent that they are more likely to be good with it, they deserve all the freedoms that comes with the application of it. Proud CG.
Thank you very much, Government Whip, for that speech. To conclude the debate on the opposition bench and to bring the debate to an end, we'd like to call on the opposition whip. Here.
Hey guys. All right, hey guys. So a couple of things before I start my speech. I'm a deep believer in like the brilliance of the black mind. One of the major things I always talk about is how I am just as brilliant as any other person out there. However, I think that brilliance equally comes with an understanding of systems. I think to a large extent, the systems that constitute debating in Ghana and Africa broadly are seemingly lacking because the people who can explain it are actively debating. The reason why I'm saying this is because this is actively my last tournament in Ghana, and I'll spend the bulk of my time explaining the systems within debate so that questions of poor judging, questions of this is not the mechanism would finally come to an end because it really harms people. It really does harm people. But shout out to the most important person in this room to me, Nana Amabos Hamilton. I'm really glad you came to see this. I'm very, very grateful. All right, so, timer. All right, so panel, there have been 350 years between when the statute was created and now. Wizards have not complained for a drawback of the statute. There has not been any reprisal against the statute. What that implies is that there's a huge burden to prove necessity. However, the manner in which these two teams prove necessity is off the back of lies because the bulk of them have not watched or read anything about the Harry Potter series, and I'm going to prove that in my speech because it's complete nonsense. First thing you need to understand, aside Open has many theatrics, their case is just two things. First thing they say is we can explain magic. That's what these guys equally run on. The problem with that is, even if I concede that we can explain magic, it does not mean that people would accept the fact that another individual within their present and immediate society is disproportionately more powerful than they are through their genetic code and not through the normal means. People are okay with you being powerful because you are rich, because they assume that you worked your way to being rich or you had a rich dad. But the problem in this debate is that purely just by the birth of you, your genetic code, you are disproportionately powerful. And that is the point at which society crumbles through the principle that we argue to you. It's a clean principle. OO cannot claim that we are derivative. But beyond that, we think that the second thing that they argue is that, well, we can create lockets to make sure that coexistence happens. If you cast a spell, the locket protects the Muggles from the spell. Again, people can equally create counter spells to the lockets that you've created in a bid to negate it. For every spell, there's a loophole, like it's always said in Hogwarts. So that is in itself is no insulation. You just need a more brilliant magician to be able to make all these things fail. Last thing they say is contact theory. This is very ridiculous because on debate sheet posting, there's a lot of conversation on contact theory right now. The problem is, you can't say that just by the mere fact of people coming into contact with each other, they immediately become cool and become friends and start to love each other. I have interacted with 1,001 individuals from 1,001 places, but I have just about 4 friends in my life. There are people I actively hate and actively dislike. What that means is that there are multiple things that constitute appreciation of human interaction, and it's not just mere contact. We don't think that that's going to happen. But if I'm going to be, again, favorable to them, and contact theory is going to be real, it has to come off of the back of equality. The reason why I'll be willing to interact with a gay person or a Jew is because I know that they are human just like I am. So I know that the underpinning thing that cuts through is humanity. Nobody on this bench engages that idea. They cannot win the debate without engaging it. They found it easier to laugh at Elisha's simple case. Your loss. But let's then engage the more relevant team on their bench, and even the more relevant team pales in comparison, because they argue just 4 things. First thing they argue is that ordinary people still see magic as bad. That deadlock is an opening half deadlock, and that's why they lose to OO. Because OO says if ordinary people see magic as bad, then why then introduce them to a world where they have to live together? It's going to spew wars and chaos. But then they defend that argument by claiming that the reason why people see magic as bad is because there are some bad magicians, and these bad magicians are largely the ones that are going to harm you. The problem with that argument is that they need to be able to prove that there has been repeated interactions of bad magicians in the Muggle world. In the Harry Potter series, there have been 2 major wars, the one that Grindelwald led and the one that Voldemort led. All these wars were held in niche communities of the wizarding world. They never did it in the Muggle world. No Muggle knows of these histories, knows of these conflicts. They cannot claim that people know that these things happen and that is what is going to happen. That's particularly ridiculous logic in that side. But beyond that, we think ordinary people typically react to the propensity of bad news. So no matter how good the information you give them is, the mere fact that there's a potentiality of radicalization means that it can still happen, that these guys would still demand that we lynch them, that we kill them. And the reason why we have the right to argue this from CO is because this has happened before. The probability of it not happening again needs to come off of the back of your analysis. They give no analysis to prove why it is not going to argue again. The people closest to that analysis is CG. But CG equally loses because generally you can't say that people holistically have accepted differences within society. And even if they have, it is not off the back of a different genetic code, like we argue to you from CO. But then again, they claim that you can particularly not, and this is their biggest argument, this is what whoever is pro-Teku would try to get to buy on that panel. They say that individuals are generally people who cannot express themselves when they are magicians. Another reason why that's a lie. 1, the moment you are discovered as a magician, your letter of admission into Hogwarts is sent to your parents, be it Muggle, be it wizard, be it whoever they are. They know that you have magic. You can express it to them when you come back from Hogwarts because it's naturally intuitive. Your parents would ask you, what did you do in school today? And you'd have to show them that this semester, this and this is what we learned. You can still express yourself in your home, in your private circles. But 2, we think that the bulk of these wizards have very few Muggle friends that they need to express themselves to. Why can we make this claim? Because these wizards live the bulk of their lives in these niche communities. You've gone to school for 8 years with only wizards. Your network of friends are wizards. You've been in spaces and gone to parties and marriages of only wizards. Your network of friends are going to be wizards. You only would have to express yourself within the wizarding community. We don't think that that's a problem. But the third thing we think is that the communities that particularly engage within these things know. So, worst case scenario, and this is where you need to realize that they are liars, because the whole bench liars. They say that you wake up in the morning, if your wife is an ordinary individual, she's not a wizard, you have to cast a spell to make her forget something that you particularly did as a wizard. No reference, no point of evidence, you cannot buy that case. Last thing they talk about is you can create better like interaction between science and like magic. There are classes in Hogwarts that already do that. But then they say, now you can stop global warming and all the problems happening in society. First, you need to prove capacity. What point has magic gotten to that it can change the cosmos to a point where global warming ends? They do not prove that. You cannot say it would happen if there is no capacity. We beat everyone on this bench fair and square. Let's take out OO. OO's case is three things. They say people are scared of the potential and populists and capitalists will scale it up. That might be fine. But it is not a priori to the idea that society and concessions are made on the back of equality. That principle of equality is non-existent in this interaction. If it's non-existent, you cannot create a society because nobody will be willing to compromise. Proud to win my second Hogwarts trophy.
Thank you very much, Upwake, for that speech. And thank you for bringing the debate to an end. Judges will move into deliberations. And I think in the meantime, organizers will let you know what's next. So we'll come back with the rankings and everything. Then the celebration and award ceremony will continue. Thank you.